is very informed. It's that obviously you can speak here uncensored. They won't be able to filter it as much, and so you can speak directly to it, because this is what happens to myself, to Ron Paul, to countless others that really try to shift the paradigm into really waking up to the larger control system. Is they put articles out constantly. Alex Jones, you know, has no audience. Alex Jones wishes he wasn't discredited. Alex Jones is a racist, with no proof. But we know they're doing it because they want to assassinate the messenger. But the good news is they've already assassinated their own credibility, so they're shooting blanks. And I don't think in their arrogance they've figured that out yet, Billy.
No, I agree with you, but just to give you a little bit of kind of context on the other side of it, right after the Anderson Cooper thing kind of went viral, I know you put a story on your site, and I gave a quote for that. When that sort of kind of ticked back up into the mainstream consciousness, I probably did about 10 interviews in the next couple of days. And in 7 of the 10 interviews, I was asked about the Anderson Cooper flap, and 5 of the 7 people who interviewed me had no idea it was for a charity. So that shows you that there is still a little effectiveness, because they're counting on that low information crowd to not go beyond headline.
That's it. They are targeting a low information crowd. But again, that crowd of zombies really don't even matter anymore. I mean, I'm sad to say that it's like they're almost not even people. They've decided to just mindlessly buy into this, and this narcissistic, thin, mindless gruel that's being spewed out. But speaking of Anderson Cooper, and then we're going to get into your album that I do think is one of your best in a long time. Speaking of Anderson Cooper, he really is a CIA guy. He really was in the CIA, not just an intern. He really is the grandson of one of the biggest dynasties in the country. What is it, the Astors? So he's a little rich kid, given everything he's got. He's failed. He has some of the worst ratings on CNN. So I would feel good, Billy, to have this joke, this failure that was given everything. I mean, you came from nowhere. I came from nowhere. He was given everything. He's the opposite of Americana.
You know, I think what's interesting, to me, I try to stay out of the personal side of it, although I did say the other day I wasn't born with a silver spoon up my arse like he was. I think it's very interesting that there is a level of arrogance here. That crowd, whatever that crowd is, and I've hung with them. You know, I've been in those rooms, and so have you. I've been to those parties, and so have you. That crowd really thinks they can sort of flick us off their shoulder anytime they want. And what they don't realize is that people like you and me, we're just symbols of a much greater conversation. They don't understand that a vast part of our country is waking up, is breaking this hypnosis, this grip of hypnosis, and they can't see it. They literally can't see it. They do not think, they literally think they can just double down, triple down on these narratives and these false paradigms, and the public's just going to keep lapping them up. And I think, as we see from recent events, people are starting to sort of question the narratives, and you see the media, those old world medias, doubling, triple, quadrupling down on false storylines, because they literally don't have a B plan.
I agree with you, and just the beginning of the questioning is the beginning of the end, because as soon as you question, you're no longer only in that narrow, low-information media system. You now discover the wider world. You come out of Plato's cave, and it's game over. That is such an incredibly exciting thing. I think one of your songs in the last album or the album before was about the world on fire, and the lyrics really spoke to this. I remember we were talking like 6 years ago, and you were saying, you can clearly see crisis after crisis coming, which is now here, but that out of that, we really could see a new renaissance.
I think I get the sense from talking to my friends and family, and I'm sure many of your listeners, of course, which I'm one of, those conversations that we had around the dinner table 7 years ago, which were really difficult conversations to have, and people would just throw their hands up and say, you're crazy. Now people are listening. And just the fact that you're even able to sit at that table and have those conversations and be able to back it up with statistics and people, the failure of this particular administration, the lying that goes on, and the fact that there's this greater divide between the public that's awake and the public that's asleep. I mean, those that are asleep really must want to be asleep, because, I mean, how could you not be eyes open at this point?
That's right. How could you not be eyes open at this point? And his mother was a Vanderbilt, the heir of the entire Vanderbilt fortune, not a Astor, but it doesn't matter. They're interrelated. And again, nothing wrong with being the last male heir of one of the biggest robber baron, horrible dynasties. It's just, give us a break, Anderson Cooper, because I don't even get into fighting with these personalities. But at the same time, I think it's important to not just respond and say, hey, I'm helping a cat charity, leave me alone. Don't try to make me, look like a has-been when I'm not. Everybody knows that you've been popular all along, and you've had big resurgences. I mean, it's just a joke. I mean, you've sold 40 million albums. Anderson Cooper is on a failed network that's converting to cooking shows. So I'm not being nasty. It's just they are dancing on their own graves when you are just having the courage to express what's already there. And as you said, we're like little tips of icebergs sticking up, or little focal points, as Ron Paul always says. I mean, we're nothing. We are just like everybody else that is trying to find out what the hell is really going on.
I can't disagree with you, and I think there's a democratization there in the way that we're all communicating. And thank God for people like you for building these new systems by which we're sharing information. And we're building up our own networks of communication. I mean, basically, I would argue we're past the tipping point, and now it's just how is this all going to play out? And as you've been predicting for I don't know how many years, now we're seeing the rolling out of this next wave of control and propaganda. But the fact of the matter is that everyone's so prepared and has been sort of mentally prepared for what's coming. I just want to point out one small thing because I think it's important in the context of the conversation we're having. When President Obama was elected, that night I went on stage and I knew I was already listening to you. I was kind of like half awake, let's put it. And I went on stage and I said, let's hope this is a sign that things are going to go in the right direction. And you actually ran a piece, and we didn't know each other then. You did a piece kind of mocking me or being another celebrity sort of drinking the Kool-Aid. And I was thinking back to that time. I wasn't offended by the piece. I thought it was kind of funny. But I remember thinking back to the time where I was in my own kind of awakening. And, we have to remember, those of us that are awake, there are so many people they're in that horrible moment of like, wow, if this stuff is true, what do I do? And we see that more and more now. You see people waking up, and it's really shocking to them that they've been given a lie sort of all along. And as you sit in bars and, around coffee houses and talk to people about what's really going on, you can see that it's not so much that they don't know that something's happening, they just don't know what to do about it. So we have to continue to prepare the way. And this is not some begging appeal, to be supported as an artist. But what I would say to everybody is the artists in many ways are some of the most dangerous people in the world because we have that street credibility to go out and sing some gospel. And that's what makes me dangerous is once my career starts rolling in the right direction again, well, here I come because, well, how is it possible? I mean, they've tried to kill me how many times? The Anderson Cooper is just a small example getting kicked in the shin. And so it really helps, and I'm not begging for my own self, but please support artists, support free voices, support people like Alex to keep speaking out to. And it does require material support. Like I'm a supporter of what you're doing with InfoWars Life, right? Is that what it's called?
Absolutely. Billy, I want to shift gears and talk about this more deeply because, and I use this analogy too much, I apologize, but it's so accurate, I use it. 20 years ago, you couldn't find organic food anywhere. It was very expensive if you could because there was no market. As people began to demand it, it grew the market, prices went down. It's now displacing all the garbage. It's displacing the high fructose corn syrup. They're taking it out of Hershey's. We're taking it out of Heinz. Now, look, there's still some fake organic. There's still problems. The point is we demanded quality. The market changed. And exactly, if people go out and support independent artists that are speaking out against tyranny, that's great music as well, and buy your album at SmashingPumpkinsNexus.com and then play it for friends and then ask that it be played on the radio or share it with their friends, that's how you bring the system down. You've got to go further and decide you want to promote cultures of liberty. I can't tell you historically how many kings, how many corrupt dynasties were brought down by a jester telling jokes that became viral in ancient times, or by the local band, or even one guy with his, they didn't even have guitars back then, one guy with his little mandolin or whatever, singing songs about the corrupt nobility. That would change it. So a song or an idea that isn't in the hands of the system could bring them down, and that's why they target people like you.
Yeah, look, there was a reason the CIA was, spying on John Lennon, at that point in time, he was probably the most dangerous artist in the world.
Well, they killed him, too.
Well, I can't speak to that, but I'll say this much. If you look at the power that rock and roll had in the 70s, vis-a-vis the power that rock and roll has now, I think there's been a concerted effort to drain those systems of their power, because it's just too radical. It's just too dangerous. And there's, when you have the power of a John Lennon or a Bob Marley, and they can literally have one song that will change the consciousness of the world and get people to look at something different. And I would point, and I'm saying this from a very specific point of view. Look at the lack of political music in the world right now, and compare that to the 1960s. It is unbelievable, the lack of political and social discourse in music right now. Do you think that's an accidental omission?
They came in and they took it over on record. Billy Corgan of Smashing Pumpkins fame is our guest. SmashingPumpkinsNexus.com. We're going to send out a tweet of the website right now. We're going to post this video later today on Facebook and Twitter. It needs to go viral because he has a lot of courage saying what he's saying, because they really come after people. And I got to be very careful here what I'm going to say about John Lennon. But they made a film 6-7 years ago that won a bunch of awards that had the declassified documents where Strom Thurmond, the senator, and others said, we want him taken out. We know the suspicious way he was killed. I'm just going to stop right there. But I've talked to the highest level people and been told stuff about what really went on and then what happened to them afterwards and everything. And I can tell you, the FBI and the CIA killed John Lennon. And then they went on a campaign to cover up what they did with their patsy. And so that's why when we talk about this, folks, it's very dangerous. I mean, so we're not saying, hey, we're heroes here. We're just saying, realize this isn't just your regular, shuck and jive on CNN. I mean, we're really laying it out here.
I think what's kind of funny about the modern life is I don't think they have to kill you anymore. I think they just digitally kill you.
That's right.
You know what I mean? If anything, you're almost better as a sort of living effigy. Which is why I think some of these people come out of the woodwork to try to split my throat. I mean, criticize me as an artist, that's fine. There's plenty to criticize. But if you look at a lot of the subtext of the things that have written about an artist like me, it has a lot of times it gets in a lot of sort of false narratives, moral equivalencies that have nothing to do with music or art or love or people's lives.
You just said it. You just said it. They create straw men that aren't Alex Jones or Billy Corgan, and then they attribute things we didn't say. They have these campaigns. They send out fake emails that aren't from me, insulting people. They call people up and say it's me and insult them, famous people. They spoof faxes, and I know it's the government and corporation, so believe me, what Billy's talking about, it goes on here all the time in an attempt to derail us, but it's not going to work because Billy Corgan and Alex Jones are just little bitty expressions like a compound eye of a dragonfly. We're just one little tiny part of it. You can't chop off all the heads.
Totally agree with you. And one thing I would add to that, because I know sometimes when I talk like this to people, they think, well, are you saying that everyone who works at the local paper is... No, it's these systems are put in place, and then they go out and they find people who are not free thinkers to basically implement the program.
They regurgitate the national story. They're already the little sycophantic type that'll go with whatever the mindless pop culture narrative is.
Absolutely, and I've even had off-record conversations like I know you have, where people have admitted to me where they've had stories squashed.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody makes a juice call and makes sure a story is squashed or a particular agenda is promoted. So when you're looking at your local media and you see and you go, well, this smells like propaganda, know that more than likely that person is not conscious. They are been put in that position because they're a proven bootlicker.
Almost all local news is written in New York or L.A. or D.C. This is on record and packaged and sent. You tell them the local story, and then they send down what you say. Or it's read off a teleprompter if it's a national story.
Right. So if there's a man in a high castle somewhere, there's not a lot of them. But they're able to, through their control and their media control, sort of manipulate the storyline. Look, your listeners know, and I'm a listener. We know these things are. I mean, we sit back. Look, when Ferguson started to boil over, and you had Jakari and
Biggs.
Joe Biggs down there. I was watching some of the coverage, and it's really interesting. Because it's so important that you do that because you're giving us the real on-the-street perspective as opposed to the propaganda perspective.
Billy
And we make
Corgan,
up our own mind.
stay there. Come back and finish up with that thought. Let's talk about the record straight ahead.
We're on the march.